Hey everyone, we're following a developing story coming out of South America tonight. Late last night, Sunday, December 28th, a significant 6.2 magnitude earthquake hit the northern coast of Peru. It was a terrifying moment for the city of Chimbote, where the shaking was violent enough to send residents running out of their homes and into the streets in the middle of the night. Millions of people across the region felt this one. It wasn't just a rattle, buildings were swaying, and the panic was widespread. Here is what we know about the data so far. The United States Geological Survey reports that the quake struck just offshore, about 12 miles north of the port city of Chimbote and roughly 22 miles west of Puerto Santa. Now, there is still some debate among the experts regarding the exact depth of the quake. The USGS has it pinpointed at about 41 miles deep. However, some European agencies, like the German Research Center for Geosciences, are seeing data that suggests it might have been much shallower. It's pretty common to see these kinds of discrepancies in the first few hours after a seismic event. But for the 300,000 people living in Chimbote, the numbers didn't matter as much as the chaos on the ground. We're hearing reports of furniture crashing across rooms and walls shaking violently. One resident described the moment perfectly. He said he was just sitting there watching TV when the floor suddenly started heaving, almost like something was pushing it up from right beneath him. It was definitely a tense few seconds for everyone involved, and we are keeping an eye on the situation. The stories coming from the ground are chilling. One parent mentioned that at first, the tremors felt mild, but within seconds, everything was shaking so violently that they just grabbed their child and ran for the door. Over in Puerto Santa, a coastal town even closer to the epicenter, the shaking was described as both intense and relentless. A local fisherman said he was down by the water preparing his nets when the ground suddenly started rolling like a powerful ocean wave. He watched power poles swaying back and forth while people around him screamed and scrambled into the streets. There were also eerie details reported. Residents heard metallic clanging coming from rooftops and balconies, and animals seemed to know it was coming. Dogs and livestock were visibly agitated moments before people even realized what was happening. Looking at the data, the USGS and other monitoring platforms rated this quake between a 5 and a 6 on the modified Mercalli scale near the epicenter. To put that in plain English, that is a level of shaking strong enough to crack walls, topple over furniture, and damage buildings that aren't well constructed. The impact wasn't isolated either. Reports poured in from hundreds of miles away. In the major city of Trujillo, about 60 miles out, residents definitely felt the ground move, though it wasn't quite as severe as at the coast. Even all the way down in the capital, Lima, which is more than 250 miles south, people in high-rise buildings felt the sway. One resident on the 9th floor reported seeing ceiling lights swinging and windows vibrating. They said it wasn't as terrifying as some major quakes in the past, but it was enough to make everyone in the room stop and look at each other with real concern. Many in Lima immediately checked official alerts and earthquake apps to gauge the danger. Meanwhile, social media lit up instantly. Feeds were filled with videos of shaking living rooms and objects falling off shelves, along with photos of entire neighborhoods standing outside in the dark, waiting for the all-clear. One video coming out of Chimbote really captures the tension on the ground. It shows crowds standing on the sidewalks, many of them clutching young children, and you can hear people repeatedly asking the same terrifying question. Is a tsunami coming? Because the epicenter was offshore, that fear spiked immediately. But here is the good news. The Peruvian Navy's hydrographic team was quick to assess the situation and confirmed that no tsunami warning was needed for the coastline. On the ground, authorities moved fast. Emergency response teams were deployed right away to inspect critical infrastructure, checking roads, bridges, schools, and hospitals in the hardest-hit zones.
aftermath of the quake.
The initial reports are a huge relief. There is no major structural damage, though older homes didn't escape completely unscathed. We're seeing reports of cracked walls, some sections of ceilings collapsing, and plenty of household items knocked over. To add to the anxiety, some areas lost power briefly, leaving neighborhoods in the dark right after the shaking stopped. In the Ancash and La Libertad regions, medical teams have been busy, but mostly with minor injuries. Healthcare workers say most of the people coming in were hurt while trying to rush outside. Lots of scrapes, sprains, and people in shock from the panic. A medical worker in Chimbote noted that, fortunately, no serious injuries have been reported so far. Preliminary numbers show about 20 people were kept for observation, mostly to be safe. So why wasn't the damage worse? Seismologists say the depth of the quake played a huge role. Because the epicenter was buried dozens of miles underground, that seismic energy was spread out over a wide area rather than being concentrated on the surface. That depth likely prevented the kind of widespread structural collapse you often see with quakes of this magnitude. As is often the case with these events, the data is still being refined. Because international agencies are showing different estimates for the quake's depth, we might see those numbers get adjusted as more analysis comes in. But for locals, the cause is no mystery. Peru sits right on the Pacific Ring of Fire, the most seismically active zone on the planet. It's where the Nazca tectonic plate is constantly sliding underneath the South American plate. That geological tug-of-war makes moderate to strong earthquakes a pretty common reality here. In fact, Peru has seen several quakes topping magnitude 6.0 in recent years, serving as a constant reminder of the threat living just below the surface. For the people who have lived there a long time, that threat takes an emotional toll. An elderly resident in Chimbote shared that last night brought back painful memories of past disasters. She said, "I've lived here for decades and have been through many earthquakes. Every time the ground shakes, I fear the worst. Even though this one wasn't severe, the fear feels the same." That sentiment is shared by many, and it's fueling a push for authorities to keep strengthening inspections on older buildings and to ramp up public education on preparedness. Experts are also warning that the danger isn't necessarily over the moment the shaking stops. Aftershocks are standard, and indeed, several smaller tremors were recorded in the hours following the main event. Thankfully, they were weaker and didn't cause any more damage. For now, authorities are urging everyone to stay cautious. They are advising residents to steer clear of any buildings showing cracks or damage and to keep a close watch on official announcements. We will keep you updated as we learn more about the 6.2 magnitude earthquake that struck Chimbote, Peru. Stay safe, everyone.